mountains and trees are comforting me. I've tasted the world, but nothing is sweet as all our memories. You're my haven, always there to pick me up when I need to be whole again. There's nothing quite like you, rivers and skies so blue. So I keep coming back to you. Shy and so beautiful, you never leave me cold. So I keep coming back to you. The songs in the case bring back the heartache. Know how I miss the wine from the hills. Bonfires lit, pour me a drink, love. Let's dream away. You're my haven, always there to pick me up when I need to be whole again. There's nothing quite like you, rivers and skies so blue. So I keep coming back to you. Shy and so beautiful, you never leave me cold. So I keep coming back to you.
Welcome to CEMIC 2021, the conference for semantic interoperability enthusiasts, practitioners, and all the fans. I'm Asta Griciene, and I will be your host of today. I will be welcoming you and accompanying you through the whole day. So, I would like first of all to thank the presidency of the Slovenian Presidency of the Council of the European Union, who helped us to co-organize this event and also helped with the advising on some speakers, especially the Ministry of Public Administration of Slovenia. I would also like to indicate the team behind this event who are making it on an annual basis, the Interoperable Europe team at the European Commission, who are also maintaining the virtual community on Join a platform, and all of you are most welcome to join it, to co-create, to co-design, and work on the specifications and standards at the European level. So now what do we do next? I think I have to define how we will interact. We will pick up your questions from the chat. You should see it on the right of your screen, right on your screen. And I would like that you put in this chat, where are you watching me from? Which city, which country, and if you could start indicating, I think the technical team will make it in the word cloud. And when I was preparing for the conference, I was looking at the registrations, the statistics of registrations, and I saw some people registered from Ljubljana, quite a lot, also a lot from Brussels, from Spain, from Netherlands, from Austria, from Vienna, also from Helsinki, so our friends in Helsinki, hello, hi, nice to see you. Also Italy, and who else was there? all over Europe and even beyond. So what do I see? I see on my screen, and probably you see it also, Luxembourg. I see Luxembourg. I see also Finland and Warsaw, Norway, Zagreb, hello Zagreb, hello Poland, Napoli, Italy, hello Napoli, Antwerp, Warsaw, Aachen, London, okay. I see a very interesting name, Korkununami, or probably I mispronounced it, but okay. Hello for everyone from there. So nice to see you, so nice that you joined us, and I think I owe you a short intro about myself. I'm Asta, as you know. I'm coming from Baltics, from Lithuania. I'm Lithuanian, my mother tongue is Lithuanian, and as you can imagine, for representative of such a tiny language, which probably we have also some others, not that big, it's very important semantics which are encompassing multilingualism and also cultural diversity. So that's how semantics are relevant for me. Also, the semi-conference is my 4th edition, and I'm first time on the stage, so sorry for all the hiccups and all the pauses, but I will try to do my best and also try to enjoy it. Now, what we have to do now? I think we have to go back to the event and what we are going to see. Now we will start with the opening speeches. Then we will have a nice interview with my Director General. Afterwards, we will have a keynote speech about the different phases of semantics. After the keynote, we will go for one of the more important parts of the morning, coffee, for you and for me. After the coffee, we come back to the parallel tracks, 3 parallel tracks, which you can choose which one you want to join. Also, you can jump in between. If you are interested in all of them, then you can watch recordings afterwards. After the parallel tracks, we go for a lunch break, very generous lunch break, which you can enjoy lunch and also check some of your emails. And I wait you sharp at the studio here at 2 o'clock with the pitching session, then a very important panel about implementation of data spaces, and we close at 4 o'clock. So the day is intense, but I think it's also very interesting, and we will have a bit of the breaks in between. The most important for me, that you enjoyed. Also, don't forget social media. We are present on Twitter. We will be also posting on LinkedIn. So the hashtag, it's here, CEMIC 2021, please use it. And if you can also tag the Interoperable EU account on Twitter, that would be great. That's it of the short intro. We can go with to the opening speeches. And we will start with the opening video message from Commissioner Johannes Hahn, the Commissioner for Budget and Administration here at the European Commission, who is really pushing interoperability policy forward. So let's watch the video.
Dear participants, dear members of the CEMIC community, I'm very happy to open the 11th CEMIC conference. For the second time, CEMIC is organized virtually. Thanks to digital tools, we have managed to deepen our conversations and keep the discussion open and alive across Europe and beyond. You know how much closer cooperation with our partners throughout Europe and in the EU neighborhood matters to me. In this sense, I would like to start by thanking the Slovenian Presidency for co-organizing with us this conference. Our resilience and capacity to adapt has been clearly demonstrated in how we managed to keep communication channels open, cooperation going, and responses coordinated throughout the last years. Be it health, education, or social and economic affairs, all policy areas are concerned. In this, you, the CEMIC community, have an important role to play. I acknowledge the importance of semantic interoperability for making Europe work together digitally, for making Europe resilient, prepared for the challenges to come in an open, inclusive, accountable way, in a human way. Each year, the CEMIC conference brings together the community of experts on data interoperability and provides a space to test new ideas. Thank you for helping Europe progress. Technology is at the center of many discussions today, but today's tools will be replaced by new ones tomorrow. Continuity over time, over systems, and across borders is of the essence. CEMIC is all about the communities, which continue to define and maintain semantics and data models. Keep them valid over time as technology changes. This year's edition rightly puts people in the center. Technology is not an end in itself. So while discussing technical specifications and tools in the light of the upcoming data spaces, we should always remain focused on the value technology brings to people. The digital transformation has allowed us to be at the forefront of a new reality in Europe and all over the world. We have seen record rates of adoption of new technologies and new ways of working at a very fast pace. More than 400 million digital vaccination certificates have been issued across Europe. We proposed it in March this year, and 3 months later it was up and running. We achieved this success because we decided upfront that we wanted our digital certificates to be interoperable rather than trying to knit together 27 different systems after they have been developed. It's this kind of upfront political commitment that makes it or breaks it in the fast-paced world of technological development. The story of the certificate is a prime example of why European interoperability is key to Europe's digital success. You, as experts on data interoperability, have been leading this transition, in which full digital workflows have become a daily reality for many of our colleagues, fellow citizens and businesses. As the ISO Square program has transitioned into the Digital Europe program, data interoperability remains high on the Union digital policy agenda. Semantics are one of the central components of the upcoming data spaces. Semantics provide the necessary clue to ensure interoperability within and across sectors. We need the continued support of the CEMIC community and its network of sector experts across member states, in particular in areas of health, justice, environment, and employment. The upcoming data spaces, distributed data stores, are a fundamental component of a Europe without digital borders and essential to build a successful data economy. Trusted, safe, open, and cooperative. Within such a distributed and decentralized context, semantics are key to ensure entities understand each other and trust each other. And, importantly, as reflected in the title of this conference, giving the citizens total control and sovereignty over his or her personal data is primordial. I'm happy this topic will be discussed from an implementation perspective today. So, dear Semantic members, today your discussions are instrumental to building borderless, secure, EU-wide public services and data exchanges from a common base, easy to reuse for all member states and supporting innovation efforts. In the past months, we have seen the difficulties to exchange reliable, secure data for health within and between member states, or to set up common EU solutions to help us exit safely from lockdowns, to mention only the most pressing needs. We need to make sure that in Europe without borders is possible also digitally. This is essential to support our fellow citizens' health and well-being and safeguard a sustainable European social market economy. The Union budget puts a clear focus on investing in a green, digital and resilient Europe. This gives us the opportunity to invest in the future together with you, build and develop together Europe's common digital concepts and infrastructures. I'm convinced that well-functioning digital single market can only be achieved if modern public administrations deliver innovative digital public services to citizens and businesses at all levels, both nationally and across borders. That is why we are working on a strengthened European interoperability policy, a stable, transparent and inclusive cooperation structure that helps all of us build interoperable public services focused on the human. To be successful in this, we must build consensus on semantics and data models. Your work is at the heart of our joint effort to deliver better digital public services for everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner, for pushing the interoperability policy forward and also to addressing that the community is at the heart of it. And today's event is about the community. So please be here with us, also interact with us, and also ask your questions. Now for the opening sessions, we will not ask the questions because we have a very limited time frame, but for the keynote, we will start with the questions. And after this opening speech, I would like also to invite our Slovenian counterparts, the Minister of the Public Administration of Slovenia, Boštjan Koritnik, to join us and to give his opening speech. Hello, hello Slovenia, hello Ljubljana, hello Boštjan.
Hello.
Do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, so no problem there. There's a nice exception to the rule that there are always technical problems when having such events in those times. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of governance and the Commission, distinguished participants of the SEMIC conference, it is my great pleasure and honor to open one of the biggest semantic interoperability events in the EU, organized by the European Commission and the Slovenian Presidency. In Slovenia, we firmly believe that digitalization should improve the quality of public services and therefore the quality of our citizens' lives. And therefore, the Slovenian EU presidency has put digital transformation, digital technologies, and cybersecurity as its priorities. In particular, we focus our work on artificial intelligence and data governance that are crucial for digital transformation. I'm very happy to say that at the Council, we have already achieved great progress on several legislative acts that will enable this much needed transformation and will strengthen the EU autonomy in these fields. Slovenia has more than 40 years of research and higher education experience in the field of artificial intelligence, and we are proud of many eminent scientists working in almost 100 research groups whose work includes AI. The reward for their outstanding work is without any doubt the first International Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, IRCAI, under the auspices of UNESCO that was established this year in Ljubljana. We can all agree that AI can be an advantage, but can also represent risks. And therefore, people and human values should be put in the center of development and governance of AI systems. Human centricity is the essential part of every data ecosystem. This is the only way to achieve trust among citizens. In the last year's European report on data maturity, Slovenia was recognized as a trendsetter in the open data indicator. We have also several good practices in this field. For example, implementing business intelligence, CHEST, and data warehouse for public sector salary and procurement system in Slovenia. The second is TRAY, where we use AI-supported data exchange among different organizations in public sector, and also development of Semantic Analyzer, a smart text search engine for Slovenian language based on AI technology, to name just a few. In the EU, the European Artificial Intelligence Strategy provides basis for how to successfully use various forms, vast amounts and complexity of data for efficient decision-making and services provision. Semantic interoperability plays a vital role when combining data from different systems in order to ensure common understanding. And of course, data is an essential part of digital transformation. And semantic interoperability is the key enabler for data to flow within the EU and across sectors. Strengths of data governance, interoperability, and emerging technologies should form an efficient data ecosystem. And this ecosystem should foster better decision-making and service provision for citizens and businesses. Recently, different sectors have already started establishing data spaces in order to foster a single European data market. With the ambition of making Europe a role model and the leader of society empowered by data, the EU has foreseen European data spaces and the single digital market supporting development of an attractive, secure, and dynamic data economy. The objective of the European data strategy is to ensure Europe's global competitiveness and data sovereignty. This strategy anticipates a common European data space for EU public administrations to foster seamless access and simple reuse of data. Ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that semantic interoperability is at the core of a successful data governance and essential part of digital transformation. People should remain at the heart of the digital world, where human rights and ethics, social well-being, and progress of knowledge are promoted. I wish you a lot of new ideas and an interesting discussion. Have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for these nice words and also your commitment and effort which you are putting together with your in your presidency priorities for pushing digital transformation forward and putting semantics at the heart of it. And I think now we can start with my first speaker in the studio, Mario Campolargo. Mario, please join me. It's so nice to see someone on the stage together with me.
Good morning, Asta. I'm super excited being here today with you.
So I will tell you, Mario is my Director General, and he is the guy behind the digital transformation in the Commission. He is the one really behind it, our inspirer, our supporter, and really who is pushing us forward. And Mario, we have 10 minutes. I would like to speak more, but we have 10 minutes.
Let's make the best out of this 10 minutes.
Yes. So my first question, DIGIT is making the lights turn on, you know, the hardware, the software, the help desk, everything is functioning because of the DIGIT. But semantic community is engaged in this discussion about semantic standard specifications. So how do you see DIGIT's role in all that?
Well, first I think that it's very important to thank the semantics, the SEMIC community for helping us to engage on what I would call this software side of IT. And why is this so important? Because across member states, we can send a signal of gratitude, hugging people, kissing people, shaking hands. But as human beings, we are able to distinguish the various nuances that are introduced by the culture of each one of these countries, especially now after this COVID pandemics. So as human beings, you have this capacity to understand the nuances. But when we talk about machines-to-machines communication, then they may not be best equipped to understand those nuances. And semantic is all about that, is to making sure that the information that flows from one machine to another one is correctly interpreted. I think that this semantic dimension is extremely important, even more important now, and we had our commissioner mentioning the health challenges, when we try to create at European level this notion of data spaces, where we want to share and reuse data across domains, and actually I would say, like the Commission invoked, across borders, I mean across digital borders.
Yes, Mario, I see that, the public administrations across the different countries, they took this challenge of semantic challenge to exchange the evidences. And while we were preparing for the conference, we were trying to compare our birth certificates, which in my view, nothing, special there, name, surname, birth date, and probably birthplace. And I was so surprised that in mine, I have national ID number, which seems that you don't have on yours.
Well, yes, that was a very interesting exercise. It looks like a basic document.
Yes.
Well, keep in mind that there is 20 years of difference between issuing those certificates in Portugal and Lithuania. I guess a bit, the first one was in Portugal, I guess. I'm not pretty sure. But what this shows is actually in what could be considered like a basic document for our own identity is structured in a different way. Well, I must say that I'm glad to see that in my birth certificate, the names of my grandfather and grandmother from both sides are there and not in yours. So that is just to give you a bit of teasing. But as we in DIGIT, we have to actually implement large-scale infrastructures where it's particularly important to exchange cross-border evidences. Then for us, it's particularly important this semantic layer. I would say that we need to use it daily. I would even say that we need to steer the discussion at European level. And one particular example is bringing everybody together in this conference year after year, and in this year as well.
Mario, as you have mentioned, semantics part of the policy and interoperability policy. We know that there is something in the cooking, in the kitchen, but so what is happening? What's the plan?
Well, let me say what's happening to start with. It's happening that there is a fantastic cooperation between all the public administrations in Europe. We have created this expert group of high-level representatives of the member states, and guess what? In a pure co-creation model, we have come across multiple meetings, multiple papers, we have discussed them, we have co-created, we have really been, as the Commission also said, extremely transparent and encompassing all the views. And we are super glad that this group of high-level experts in this expert group actually very recently agreed on the recommendations to what should be the new interoperability policy. So this is what is cooking up, to use your terms. But what comes next? What comes next is that the Commission committed, actually, to bring, by the mid of next year, a concrete proposal. Obviously, is based on the recommendations from the expert group, and we are very clear on that one. We want to translate those recommendations into some kind of practice. I'm sure that we go more from a voluntary basis, that has been the experience throughout the last few years, into a more mandatory kind of. So making sure that we all get together, not just the national level, but also the regional level and the local level in this process of creating an interoperable Europe. And for us, this is particularly important to correspond to our ambition of having an European fit for the digital age. This is absolutely fundamental. Furthermore, we believe that this is important for the public administrations to respond, actually, first to transform themselves as digital administrations, but also to transform to ensure a swift recovery after these pandemics, and also to make sure that our economies, but also the personal side, the citizens and the businesses are better served. So semantics and this interoperability is crucial. Interoperability is crucial to go from recommendations to a kind of concrete actions. We expect to come up with a proposal by the mid of next year.
Sounds good, sounds promising. Sounds, I think, something, what we can wait for and see how it will turn.
The dynamics is amazing, and this is what I want to say again and again. Transparency, encompassing all views, and co-creating this process.
So kind of community approach. Let's do it together.
Let's do it together, exactly.
Okay, that's very nice. Now I come back again to the title of the conferences, Data Spaces Powered by Interoperability, and also with the spice of human centricity.
Yes.
And data spaces. Now we see data spaces, okay, What I understand, we will have tourism, we will have smart cities, we will have other data spaces where public sector and private sector will contribute and also share the data. And until now, my understanding was that public sector was really pushing forward for semantics. But how do you see now this transition to this co-creation between private and public? What are the challenges, what are the opportunities there from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because I have argued in several events that the future of public administrations is not to work alone. They need actually to team up with the private sector, with the innovation ecosystem. The services that will be provided to citizens and businesses will no longer only be provided by the public administration per se, but by this cooperation between private and public entities. Also because there is a dynamic on the private sector, there is a dynamic in the community to use the open data, for example, of the public administrations to create new services better adapted to particular areas or groups of citizens or businesses. But you challenged me on giving you a concrete example. I was very inspired by the presentation of Commissioner Hahn. And I want to reiterate a bit the digital COVID certificate as an example of already in the health of a preamble of what is going to be, one, the data space for health, and second, how we can translate this in very concrete advantage for citizens and businesses, including for tourism, because we basically opened the borders by having the digital certificate. And this for me is very important because we came, as the Commission said, to a consensus on what was the semantic interpretation of the data that we would put there. But more, we adopted very important principles like data minimization. We followed completely the GDPR in Europe. So here is an example where we have not just the need of a data space created by what I would call a digital-ready policy implemented in a very concrete app that people can fill every day. And on top of that, this app is based on open source software, is publicly reused outside even Europe, what is very important. And we are very proud in DIGIT because we have been part of the process and we are hosting part of the information, this exchange of information. So it's, I think, a vivid example where public administration teamed up actually with private companies to develop the digital COVID certificate, and this is widely used by public and private entities, including at the level of the laboratories that do the vaccination, in some countries private, and that bring the information reliably, securely, with all the GDPR concerns in the right place to be shared with the other colleagues.
That's a very nice example. I really like it because it shows what is the added value we bring.
It's ongoing. It's ongoing.
Yes,
you know.
Real success story, I would say.
Yes, I think so.
Now, Mario, one last question because I see that the time is up, almost up. Huh? All this digital transformation requires digital skills, you know, a certain digital literacy. And we will have this afternoon a pitching of the young students who will be coming up with innovative ideas, research ideas in semantic area. But not only students, but, you know, there is a need of digital skills, of improving digital skills, our digital skills. So the key skills which you think are important for the...
Well, you touch, first, if we have these 10 very skilled, let them know that the Commission is always willing to engage with them in any kind of cooperation, including having opportunities for them to join us as colleagues. Okay. But I think that the literacy is absolutely fundamental. The general literacy of everybody to use, for example, the apps that we are putting at their disposal. And yes, from the public administration point of view, the multi-channel is very important. But this means that let's look into the future. The digital is the main channel, so we need to increase the literacy of everybody in every single country, an effort that the member states are doing very well and that we support at European level. But second, we need to create more skills, different skills on the side of the public administrations, I would say also on the side of the public sector. Let me give an example. When you think about public administrations linking to the citizens through, for example, live events, it's absolutely fundamental that the creation of those services is not done by IT people, and I'm an IT people, so I can safely say that. But engaging anthropologists, psychologists, sociologists to try to understand the human dimension of those services and making sure that they reflect not just a technical view, but a societal view and the centricity on the user or the business. Yes. But we need leaders. We need leaders that are able to push the digitalization. I'm sure that we are not the most advanced ones, but if you allow me, I would like to give you the example of our leaders, digital leaders circle. We created it with all the director generals and deputy director generals of all the institutions, and we make a group of reflecting what is the role of the leaders in making the digital transformation of our organizations. And we thought about culture. We thought about emerging technologies like AI or data analytics. We thought about all the, what is the concept itself of transformation that is not just using the old metaphor of paper, but it's a digital metaphor that comes in, and we have to reconceptualize processes and policies from the point of view of digital ready. And this experience with this digital leaders circle has been very inspiring. Here we find digital leaders from all areas, from maritime, health, from tax to educational justice, and is bringing all of those together that makes our organizations more resilient for the future and digitally transformed.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you. I think I see already the technical team showing me the signs that we have to finish. I'm sorry.
Very good. I wish you an excellent conference. I'll be looking it from the other side as a follower. And thank you very much for bringing this to us. Amazing.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for coming here and joining me here on the stage.
You.
And now I come back to our keynote. As I mentioned to you, the keynote is different phases of semantics. A very interesting name, and I'm very curious to see what Marko will share with us. The speaker is Marko Grobelnik from Slovenia. He is digital champion from 2016. Also, he is a researcher in the field of AI. Marko, I was looking on your LinkedIn profile, so I took some pieces from there. What was most interesting for me? Machine learning, yes. Data, text, web mining, and a lot of other things, and of course, the AI at the heart of it. Let's see your presentation, and 20 minutes for your presentation, and then we come with the questions and answers. Marko, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. I guess slides will appear, yeah. Okay, so I put the title, Many Faces of Semantics. So I was thinking, what to tell to the audience, which probably knows a lot about semantics on the top of it, right? So since now we live in a time of AI, somehow I wanted to kind of join the concept of semantics with AI and show 4 different, let's say, phases of semantics. And the first one is conceptual view, some of the conceptual points. The policy view and the technology view. There's a little bit of a sound. Studio, if you can turn off the noise. Okay, thanks. And application view. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So first, the conceptual view, right? So the role of semantics in a broad sense, right? So everybody talks really about data, right? Like data is the heart of everything. It is some kind of, it's true that data is the oil, right? But at the end, we want to get power out of that oil to get some substance, right? And this is where semantics comes in, right? So data is really just a prerequisite to understand the broader picture of the world we are observing, right? But where it really where data transforms into some substance, this is where semantics comes in. Now, what's kind of relevant to observe, right? The last 30 years of science, right? So science changed a lot in the last 30 years. Let's say at the beginning of 90s, right? Science was very model driven, right? So model driven meaning okay, there was a scientist, a smart guy, right? So made few experiments and then derived with his or her intellect a model out of it. And this model then became like an outcome deliverable of that work, right? So this is the model driven, right? Nowadays, things changed a lot, right? So everything is data driven. So basically we collect data and we derive the, in more or less automatic way, the models out of the data. So this changed a lot, right? And in the same way, also semantics changed a lot along these lines, right? So from the times where semantics was really kind of more like philosophical discipline to the time today where semantics is really a bridge between first data and models, right? And also bridge between machines and humans. So this is where I would say semantics stands these days. Next slide, please. So some of the key elements which maybe just for the start we should be aware of, right? So as we all agree, semantics is usually an abstraction of the world we want to describe, right? And typically we use concepts and relationships, and we abstract this concepts and relations into something what we call ontology or a world model, right? So these are the basics of the semantics, right? Ontology, concepts, relations, right? But something happened, right? So this seems it was not enough, right? So if you go like 15, 20 years ago, where semantic web was really active, right? Maybe 10 to 15 years ago, right? So semantics was really based on the logic or different kinds of logic, right? But this was simply not enough to describe all the relevant problems we want to describe. So back then we can say, okay, that we were using explicit semantics, right? Something what humans understand, right? But in the nature or in the world, there are more concepts than humans can even name or identify, right? And this is where AI is kind of stepping in. And this now today's AI, as we will see on the next slides, operates, of course, with the concepts. Previous slide, please. Yeah, so but these concepts are not explicit; they're not human understandable. So we call it latent concepts, and most of today's AI basically is based on these latent concepts which occasionally people can understand, right, and identify, but mostly not, right? But for machines, these concepts are still relevant and available, right? And as the last point, relevant to mention is also dynamics, right? So the old semantic web or semantics operated more or less with the static data. So dynamics was not really first-class citizen of that approaches, right? For today's approaches, semantic, so dynamicity is needed, right? So this is something which also needs to be put on the table. Okay, next slide, please. So maybe just a quick reference to something what we can call old AI. So this was something between until 2010, which was predominantly using explicit semantics, as we mentioned before. But now the success of the new AI, this is mainly due to deep learning and these modern techniques, is mainly because of switching from the explicit semantics, so something that humans understand into this new world of probabilistic latent semantics, which are most often not understandable for humans. So on the bottom, you see two pictures. On the left side, you would see classical taxonomy, ontology, something which is properly ordered, right, which is carefully designed and so on. On the right side, you see a kind of a mess, two-dimensional mess. Usually it's a highly dimensional mess, which actually fits way more to how the nature looks like, right? And this is how today's AI actually deals with this so-called latent semantics. So if we go to the next slide, so we will see a table. This is a little bit unusual, maybe a little bit unconventional view to AI and description how techniques and representations come together, right? So techniques like statistics, AI, data mining, many others, right, which deal with data, they usually try to discover phenomena. And these phenomena are usually either known to people, right, or unknown to people, and techniques are discovering this phenomena. Okay. Now, in the past, using this so-called explicit semantics, we had techniques like, let's say, traditional statistics, supervised machine learning, data mining, business intelligence especially, right, for discovering or researching phenomena which we kind of know as humans, right? But there are also a set of techniques which try to discover phenomena which are unknown to people, right? Like unsupervised machine learning, advanced statistics, and so on, right? Now, switching to these latent semantics, what happened primarily in the last 10 years with the appearance of methods like deep learning, neural networks, reinforcement learning, and a couple of more, like GANs and so on, right? We switched actually in the space where we were able to research known phenomena in way more efficient way, right? It's just that we lost this human understandability, right? What's interesting on the lower right corner, there are also techniques which try to discover unknown unknowns, right? So unknown phenomena with, let's say, I wouldn't say totally unknown representation, but something which is not close to human. So this is something which is also still topic for the future, but this is also there, and AI is kind of on that. Okay, next slide, please. So we'll touch briefly explainability and semantics. So we humans, often we are not able to explain our decisions, right? But we kind of expect from machines to explain at least the important decisions, right? For most of the things what we do, like when we do Google search or when we operate on Facebook and Twitter and so on, we don't ask machine, why did you show us exactly that results and so on. But for more critical decision making, we need, like in health and so on, we need decisions, right? Now, as said before, like on one side, we have very efficient techniques like neural networks and a couple of others, right? Which cannot really explain why they came with certain decision. On the other side, we have set of techniques which are perfectly explainable, can explain decisions, or are using models or representations which are human friendly, right? But they are not performance-wise, they're not as good, right? So this balance will stay, and we cannot expect that in the future this most powerful techniques will change and start being able to explain their decisions. Some people think, well, this will change, but believe me, it won't, because it's in the heart of this algorithms to use representations which are problem specific, not human specific, right? And semantics will have to stay as a bridge, but we'll also have to adapt, I guess, somewhat, especially moving towards this more like probabilistic representations, right? Okay, next slide, please. So next we will check the policy view on semantics. Especially from the side of AI, there are 4 international documents which are relevant to know. So one is definitely the recent AI Act, so still in a draft form, which will come out next year. Then OECD's AI Principles from 2019, UNESCO AI Ethics, and Council of Europe's recent elements of legal framework on AI. So the last 2 documents really came out in the last few weeks. And also we have Data Governance Act. So these are kind of relevant policy documents when we talk about semantics. Now, if we carefully read them, none of these documents actually is explicitly relating to semantics, except maybe when it comes to interoperability and metadata, right? And also definition of AI, where semantics is referred as a class of AI techniques. So in that sense, in this policy document, semantics is considered more like as an enabling technology along with these many other approaches, right? So this is, as I see the content of this document. Okay, next slide. So we will check now. I mentioned that semantics appears in the definition of AI. So as a basis, I will take here OECD AI definition from 2019, which was adopted this year by European Commission for AI Act. And as I see, pretty much both definitions, so AI Act and the OECD one will be heavily aligned also next year, as I see how things evolve these days. So definition is really 3 sentences, as you see, right? Now, let's see where the semantics comes in. Next slide, please. In this definition, I highlighted a couple of points where semantics really is in the core. So first one is, if you see in the first sentence, so AI system is machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives. So this is definitely where semantics kicks in, right? So human provides objectives. So this is one thing. And then in the second sentence, we see the feedback loop, 3 stages, right? So perceive real environment. So this is where without semantics, we cannot do anything. Then abstraction into models, the second point, and use the model interpretations. So these are 3 or 4 points in the definition of AI, which will be used also by EC, where which are, let's say, semantically rich, right? We can avoid semantics to some degree in these points, but not entirely, right? So this is, I think, what's kind of relevant to say. Let's go to the next slide. I will show now this definition in a graphical form. So this is very recent. So this means like 2 weeks ago, graphical definition of an AI system, which is based on the AI definition, right? So you see on the top, well, data, which goes into AI model goes in task and output, and this is serving the context, and this is either industrial or people and planet context, which makes these AI systems some kind of human-centric. So this was not even published yet. But what's relevant here? First, it's interesting that, well, we use this ontology style of description of what an AI system is. This is maybe an interesting detail, but if you go through all these points on the in all these boxes, you would see several points, right, which where semantics is the key enabler, starting with provenance, model characteristics, inferencing, and so on, right? So this is maybe another possible policy view. And let's go to the next slide, which might be maybe a little bit disputable discussion, but still probably most of you or everybody is aware of the AI Act. Most of you probably even checked the document. So the question is, can we improve the existing AI Act using some of these concepts from semantic and knowledge technologies? So I would say yes. So I kind of extracted like 4 points. One is about this human-centered AI. As soon as we talk about human-centered AI, this means that semantics is a bridge, and this needs to be probably put also in some kind of regulation, maybe in the annex, but this is certainly a place for semantics, because the communication needs to be clear enough between human and machine, and this makes the systems human-centric, right? Then AI Act is heavily risk-based, right, approach. Now, risk-based approach assumes also at some later stage also certification of AI systems. So as soon as we have this clarity through certification, again, the semantics kicks in, right? So I think this is too early for AI Act to be clear about the certification procedures, but we can expect this within a year or two from now, right? Then next point, which should be emphasized in something like an AI Act. So education of and for AI and the overall data culture, right? So as part of this AI education, semantics should be one of the basic courses, right? To explain what data represents, so either through structured data, language, multimodal, graph networks, and so on, how data can be described, what is metadata, what is ontology, what is abstraction, and on the top of this, what is reasoning and inference. So these are the key concepts from semantics, which are not that heavily present in AI itself. And as the last point, so AI as it stands will change in the future, right? So as we will see in some of the next slides, my expectation is that semantic technologies will play major role in the future of AI, and also in that respect, I expect in the future also that regulations will touch semantics or semantic issues within the AI systems way more. Okay, let's go to the next section. So this is the technology view. Next slide, please. Few thoughts, maybe a little bit biased view, but still, what is the status or what are the success stories of semantic technologies today, right? So one is probably no need to explain our knowledge graphs, right? The big success of semantic web used by pretty much everybody, which enable transparency and flexibility in dealing with data and interoperability, right? So practically you deal with knowledge graphs every time when you do Google search, whenever you export any kind of data and so on, right? Or now what's really interesting is that knowledge graphs are not really just part of semantic web community. They got extremely popular also in AI and machine learning community under the name graph neural networks, which is mostly research on the top of knowledge graphs, huge knowledge graphs, right? Then next observation, which we touched already before, so the latent semantics joined this explicit semantics. So elements of this mixture of both sides we can spot in all modern AI systems in one or the other way, right? And what's also relevant, so it's not just about semantics, it's not just about data or graphs or knowledge encoded, right? But it's also about inference and reasoning techniques, right? Which, as we know, so the old-fashioned reasoning are, well, it's nice, clean, logic-based, but very inefficient, right? So the advances which AI is bringing now into the inference are pretty amazing, actually, from my point of view, and we can expect pretty interesting results in the future, right? Let's not to go into details here. This just means that we'll be able, most likely, to perform inference on much bigger scale as we could have imagined, like in the last 10, 15 years, right? Then what's interesting to say is also that language technologies and other like computational social sciences are moving towards semantic technologies as well, right? Maybe it's a good question why this is happening, right? This is happening because we need to manage complexity, right? And as long as problems are simple and small and narrow, right, we don't need too much of the semantic technologies. Everything can be done in, I don't know, Excel and in a simple way. As soon as we increase the complexity, then let's say semantic is the necessary part of it. Not the only, but the necessary part. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I would just, I think this is worth mentioning. Everybody knows about Wikipedia, but not everybody knows about developments around Wikipedia, right? So we can easily say that Wikipedia is became like a global multilingual encyclopedia. So no question, right? It's updated in real time, basically addressing pretty much everything what seems relevant. So everybody's using this probably almost every day, right? No question about this, right? So this is Wikipedia. But now moving towards semantics, right? So we have Wikipedia. This is knowledge graph of Wikipedia. So for many critical applications dealing with this global semantics, right? Wikidata is really the semantic hub for these kind of applications. Of course, Wikidata has competition like in Google Knowledge Graph or some other knowledge graphs from mostly big tech companies, but Wikidata is something which probably is hard to compete with, just because the whole world collaborates. And now I would like to touch just the last project, which it's really amazing for me, so which is called Wiki Functions, or also called Abstract Wikipedia. So basically what's happening in this project, this is still ongoing work, right? Wikipedia might be turned into knowledge format in a pure logic, pretty much, or probabilistic logic, right? And this, at least for me, this seems to me maybe one of the most important projects happening right now on this more or less open scene, because this is one of these dreams of AI to extract knowledge straight from the text. AI may be powerful, but still cannot do this, right? We cannot even extract automatically knowledge from, I don't know, simple fairy tale, right? Not even the full Wikipedia. But these wiki functions is this kind of, let's say, approach towards this, which seems like viable. Okay, the next slide, please. Let's check a little bit our view into the future, right? There are a couple of, I selected like 4 points which seem to me like relevant for the future. So first one, you might not be aware of this term, but in AI, it's getting pretty hot term, right? Foundational models. What are foundational models? So these are... So something happened, I guess.
Marko, I think we had a technical issue, but you can go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So foundational models are large pre-calculated machine learning models which are trained on massive data, right, and ready for reuse. So these models are something which cannot be pre-calculated by let's say academics or small industry. Typically, big industry like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and so can pre-calculate this. So maybe you are aware of this GPT-3, right? This was last year's success in AI, right? So this is an example of a foundational model for text, right? But there seems that more foundational models are coming. And this could represent as a baseline for some kind of latent semantics libraries for particular domains. So this is one very important move in a, I wouldn't call it a semantics, but semantic technologies can adopt this and embrace, right? So this is one development which maybe it's good to be aware of. Then the next thing, it's common sense AI, right? Common sense AI is, deep text understanding, which I mentioned on the previous slide, which is basically long-term dream of AI to capture human knowledge from text. Most of human knowledge is basically written in text, in books, in textbooks, in documents, in news, and so on, but we are still not able to capture this or encode this knowledge into something which would be operational. So far, pretty much what we can do is we can count words and right? But basically, we cannot operate with text as a source of knowledge. So this, as I see developments in US, also in Europe, right? Also in China, in terms of investments into this area, we can expect in, well, let's be optimistic, 5 to 10 years results on that front, right? Then the next point, which is relevant for semantics, which it's kind of remotely touched within, let's say, semantic web or this semantic AI. It's causality, right? Causality is basically, it's about understanding the mechanics, how things happen in the world, right? How things are connected causally, right? So last maybe 2-3 years, right? Not really before, but last 2-3 years, there's a lot of push, especially I would say in the last year. It's a lot of push in the direction to understand this concept of causality in the world, right? And so semantics is a pretty integral part of it, because semantics represents the world, right? It's a representation of the world. And if you remember, like 20 years ago, when we were building ontologies and so on, occasionally these causal connections happen. What we can do now, we can extract them, right, straight out of data. And so this is one line which is relevant to say. And maybe the last one, I mentioned this already, complex systems, right? So machines will, or AI will move from today's narrow AI into something which I would call more like holistic AI. The key element of this holistic AI will be to moderate or to operate complex systems which are beyond human comprehension to operate, right? And these systems will be most likely, are at least the ones which are already around, will be hybrid, which will include many technologies, and semantics will be glue on that systems, or it is already, right? So this was my third view. I'm not sure if I still have time. I think I'm like 5 minutes over. Otherwise, if I still have time, I would maybe briefly touch 3 applications which are in the line of these complex systems. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the first system, I will be really brief here. So the first system is global media monitoring in real time. So the task here is, can we observe the world as it happens in real time across the languages? Okay, we have a system which is fairly close to this. It's called eventregistry.org, where we get like 10 to 15 news stories per second, right, in all the languages. Then we arrange them, we align them with wiki data, right? We arrange all these documents into events. Events are interlinked in the storylines, and on the output, we see an evolving knowledge graph of interlinked events. So here you see one picture from the system, but the system is, so this is a lecture by itself. So once having this, we can do things which we cannot really do otherwise. Like we can do what-if simulations, right? Currently we are working on predicting likely future events, or even predicting consequences of events, right? So this is an example of a complex system which is entirely based on cross-lingual semantics, right? Then the next slide, please, which I will briefly touch, is the system which we are building together with OECD. So this is OECD AI Policy Observatory. So here I would say this is a cross-discipline semantics. The point here is, can we observe the innovation cycle globally, right, across many dimensions, where each of these dimensions has different data source or different characteristics, and where semantics would be a glue or would provide interoperability across these many sources. And basically, what we try to do in the system is to cover this narrative. What you see here, well, first to spot innovations, right, typically in academic world, then tracking this across projects, seeing patents, seeing investments, to see the influence on job markets, to see the reactions on the market, seeing how education is getting changed along the way, to see perception through search engines and media, right? Okay, not to go too much into details. Next slide, please. Okay, this is one view which I will skip, but next slide, please. So here you see a graph, an example of what semantics across these many cross-domain data sets can achieve. Like next slide or next click, please. So first graph, you see media. So what we are observing here is a Google TensorFlow, piece of software from Google, which everybody is using every day, not even knowing, right? Whenever we do Google search, whenever we do Google Translate, whenever we touch phone, pretty much this TensorFlow would serve the results, right? The slide disappeared.
Marko, I'm back with you because the time is running up and I still see some questions which I want to ask you. The presentation was amazing. It was very interesting. I was watching here. I just see that our AI tool, which we're using for transcription from text to this, from speech to the text, it's interesting and interpreting in, I think it needs a bit of machine learning still, to some courses to improve.
Sure.
So one of the questions, is there a danger of underrepresentation of minority language on web of data? It's very relevant for me because I think that Lithuanian has less than 3 million, so it's not that big language in the EU context. So danger of underrepresentation of minority languages on the web of data. What do you think?
So whenever we talk about minority languages, we need to be aware that Lithuanian or Slovenian are not minority languages because this is first class of languages, right? We are among most privileged languages in the world. So in the world, we have like 7,000 languages and most of them have zero support, right? So me and you, we shouldn't complain really. Now, related to minority languages, technologies like semantic technologies, right, are basically the type of technologies which enable surviving these languages. There's no other way. Why? Because we are connecting these languages through, well, in a semantic way, web of data, whatever we call this, into the rest of the pool of world languages. So this is basically, quick answer is, yes, there's a big danger that many languages will disappear, and they are disappearing, but saving them, basically semantic technologies is the way how to save them. Right?
Okay, thank you very much, Marko. It was very interesting to hear. I'm afraid that we don't have much time left, and my technical team is showing the signals that it's already time for a break. Very nice to have you with us. If you can stay still online in the back office, I will ask you for the answering that you could answer, let's say, and we put in the chat the answers to the post questions. And for our audience, enjoy your coffee. We meet in 10 minutes in virtual rooms. So there will be 3 virtual rooms. One on interoperability in public services, another data governance, personal data governance, and the last one, semantics and text mining. We meet you 11:15, you go directly to your room. Thank you very much, audience. Let's have a coffee break. And Marko, I stay you still in the back office to ask you the other questions for the answers to put in the chat. Thank you.
Sure.